Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is Dr. Robert Breakey. If you're not familiar with him, we talked about him on the show, even though he wasn't on, when Vicky came on with her new book because he wrote the foreword to it. And I have been wanting to talk to him for years. This is my first time meeting him. He is a wonderful plant-based doctor in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and please welcome him to the show. Why has it taken so long for us to meet?
Great question, Chef AJ. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And thank you to your listeners for joining us on this beautiful summer day. We're having a heat wave here in Michigan, I think up to 95 today. So I was going to record it on my back deck or join you on my back deck, but too hot out there.
We're 99 today.
99. Oh, you're beating us.
But if I was still living in the desert, I bet you it would have been 10 degrees hotter even. Is it humid where you live though? Because to me, it's not, that's saying it's not the heat, it's the humidity is very true.
Yeah, in the summer we get moderate humidity, yes, and it can go up quite a lot. So, but we're blessed to have really 4 distinct seasons. It's great in Michigan. I guess a lot of people think because we're so far north, it's always cold, but we have a great summer here and we're blessed with hundreds of lakes. And great place to live. I was born in Hawaii, actually. My dad was in the Navy in 1955. My mom said when they lived there for a year and a half, it got kind of boring. Always
really?
The same.
How could Hawaii be boring? It's one of my two favorite states. I can't imagine it being boring.
It is. Me too. She said the weather got kind of boring. It was like always sunny and 80 with a chance of rain. So she sort of missed the seasons. Brought me back here for kindergarten through medical school in Ann Arbor. And again, great to be on your show.
Kindergarten through medical school. Wow. You know, I spoke for the PBNSG a long time ago, and it was like in December, and it was 6 degrees. Now, come on, that is too cold.
Did you? That's right. It was that. That's what I mean. We get both ends of the spectrum, and at least then the pond freezes right out there, and we can go ice skating, skiing. We got it all, Chef AJ. You got to move to Michigan.
Wow. Well, no. So how long have you been a doctor, and how long have you been a plant-based doctor?
I graduated medical school in 1981, and I had already been plant-based for 4 years before that. In 1977, I actually started when I read a book by Francis Moore Lapage called Diet for a Small Planet. And that was when Earth Day was coming to life. People were concerned about the environment, the earth, the population. How are we going to support these people? And it just struck me as so logical that why would you feed the food first to the animals and then the animals to the people instead of capturing all that nutrient value directly? I next read a book called Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, and it really documented the abhorrent conditions on the modern factory farms, which haven't been any better in the last 43 years. But together that made me say, okay, that's it, I'm done. But I had one more step. Being in medical school, I had to say, if I'm going to die of malnutrition or this won't support health, I got to do what I got to do. Well, as I researched that, and even then the evidence was on the verge of overwhelming that a plant-based diet was the best for us as well. So it was a triple win. And one of my early mentors I know has been on your show a couple of times, Dr. McDougall. When he came out with his book, The McDougall Plan in 1985, that was really a turning point too, to be able to see this isn't just some people at the co-op thinking it's a good idea. There was great science behind this and well-referenced research that shows that that's what best supports us, our planet and the animals. So it was easy for me.
Wow. So you actually first became plant-based like before me, 1971. I waited till 1977. That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh no, I was 77.
77.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
That's the same year I went vegan.
All right.
So, all right. September 1st was my vegan anniversary. Do you remember the date?
Well, it was a process, and March was my last red meat Burger King Whopper. In July was my last. August was my brother's wedding. I had chicken, and then on my birthday in December was my last seafood. So it's a gradual progress. But yes, I remember those dates. because again, I think for a lot of people, it's a turning point, not only for promoting health, wellness, and vitality, but in feeling like you're doing the right thing, both for the planet and I just feel good seeing no cruelty on my plate.
Wow. So did it, I'm sure it affected the way you practice medicine.
Oh, absolutely. I was a rabble rouser in medical school. I remember during our diabetes lecture that he starts out and he says, so we're going to talk about diabetes today. Now, remember, the cornerstone for treatment of diabetes is lifestyle and diet. Now, let's move on to the medications and the complications from the medications and how we treat those complications and the surgeries and the amputations and the bypass surgery that come from the complications. And at the end, I raised my hand and I said, Professor, you said at the beginning that the cornerstone of treatment was diet for diabetes, but you didn't really mention it after that. Well, what is a good diet? And he sloughs me off. Oh, just eat a good basic food group. Now let's move on to something important. And it was, I don't know, it's sad because I got virtually no training in nutrition or health promotion or prevention in all of medical school. One of the finest medical schools in the country at University of Michigan. And that also hasn't changed much. And again, get into some of the reasons for that if your listeners are interested. But it's a sad commentary on our disease management system rather than health promotion system.
Exactly. And it must be frustrating in a way to know what you know and see what you see.
Yeah. As you mentioned too, during residency, then I continued to study and learn what I hadn't learned in medical school with early mentors like John McDougall, John Robbins, and many others. And then as I practice medicine, I give all my patients what I call my 8 keys for health and wellness. And it really reviews of whole food, plant-based eating, high fiber foods, exercise daily, sleep well, develop social connections. All these things are important components. And as a result, those who take it to heart, take it to plate, really do so much better. And a lot of people feel like, how do you know this? And obviously the literature, the science is overwhelming, but I also see it every day in my office. People sometimes 40 who are more like 80 with arthritis and their first heart attack and their diabetes and their handfuls of meds, or people the opposite. One of my patients, George, is 84. He's plant-based and still going strong. And obviously, those are anecdotes, but on average, the people who take care of themselves, who eat real human food, do so much better. And it's gratifying to help those who are in that early stages or uncertain, to empower them to say, I want some of that too.
I love that. People that take it to heart, take it to plate. That's a good one.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Well, we got to put it on a mug or a t-shirt. Didn't Dr. McDougall go to medical school in Michigan as well?
He grew up in Michigan, in Canton, about 15 minutes from here. And that's a funny story too. When I came back to start practice in 1985, I did some urgent care work, and there was a nurse in urgent care, and we started talking, and she's, plant-based. And she said, oh, you should read my brother's book. I'm like, but what, who's your brother? And she said, oh, John McDougall, you don't know of him? And that's how I first heard of him. I went home right away. And at that point, you didn't order it on Amazon. You go down to Borders and buy it. And I devoured that book, but I met his sister first. And then later she introduced me to him when he came home to visit his family. He had dinner at our house. And again, got all his tapes and books and lectures. So he was one of my early mentors who helped me to see that you can not only take this for yourself, but to your patients. And I've helped thousands of patients now to move along the continuum. It's not all or nothing, but help people to move in a direction that helps support their health and wellness. And they so appreciate it. It's a refreshing view for many of them compared to what they get from most doctors.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had Dr. McDougall over for dinner. Do you remember what you served him?
Oh, wow. We had these tofu and vegetable kebabs, corn on the cob, and some sweet potatoes. This was back in late 80s, so I don't remember the exact details. But I do remember he and his wife, Mary, coming out on the porch with their plates going, now this is our kind of food.
Oh, that's great. I had the pleasure of having him over for dinner once, and we were so nervous, and we made sure there was lots of starch.
Yeah. That's right. Get those potatoes in there somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. We air fried potatoes that we had beans and other things too, but we made sure that every course had starch, even the dessert.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that's a part of what he's really pioneered, is to help people see that it's not a bad word. This is the basis of the optimal energy source for people, is the whole grains and vegetables, the beans, the ones that are starchy vegetables, especially good. So yes, excellent.
Ooh, we have another awesome plant-based doctor watching, Dr. Melissa Sunderman. Hi,
Oh.
thank you for being here. She's amazing. She's been on the show. Dr. Breakey, what percentage of problems do you see in your practice that could be either prevented, eliminated, or reversed if people ate the way we ate?
Wow, estimates are around 80%, maybe even more than that when you look into the details. But it's both sad, and it's also exciting to know that that's within our power, to help people to see that it's not just genetics or aging or bad luck or anything that the pharmaceutical industry would like you to believe in. It's the food, as Michael Clapper said. It's the food. It's always been the food. Now, obviously, other components of lifestyle medicine are important as well, as we mentioned. And maybe, as you're getting into these questions, it'd be a good time for me to share a few slides and just kind of give a quick overview of what I help my patients to see, and see if that generates some additional questions from people. Is that good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Let me push share screen here. And see if we can get this to work. Okay, is that working? Can you see my screen?
Perfect.
Okay, so I grew up in Ann Arbor, the oldest of four boys. It was the 60s. It was a time of food revolution, of processed food, of convenience food, of dishwashers. It was also a time when 45% of adults smoked, including my mom. We hated it, but then came 1964, and Dr. Terry Luther released the famous Surgeon General's report on smoking and health. And fortunately, smoking rates begin to drop precipitously. This is per capita smoking rates in men in the blue. And you see it going down and down and down. And then with about a 30-year lag, down started the incidence of lung cancer in men. Now, this was a dramatic example of where we don't have double-blind placebo-controlled studies, but it's pretty clear that smoking was the cause of lung cancer. And the area under this curve below the drop in the red line are clearly lives saved from this report that said, we're going to say smoking is no longer good for you, and millions of people quit and lives were saved. Unfortunately, the area under this blue curve is lives lost that could have been saved had we known earlier. Well, fast forward to 1990, and Dean Orange came out with his landmark study on coronary artery disease. Our leading killer is also not only preventable, but reversible. Fast forward to 2015. All 15 of our leading killers are preventable in Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, including Alzheimer's, several cancers, diabetes. So when you said how many, again, at least 80% are preventable, reversible. In fact, our shameful stats are pretty sad. We spend over $3.2 trillion on healthcare with at best mediocre results. And mediocre is giving it more credit than it's due. In a recent Commonwealth report, we ranked 11 out of 11 high-income countries in healthcare, and that was looking at outcomes, disparity, access, and cost of care. A big reason for that is we focus on the end stage care with pharmaceuticals and high tech instead of preventing or reversing disease through known mechanisms once they're there. We know that prevention works also from the seatbelt. As we implemented seatbelt laws in the 90s, down went the fatality rate from auto accidents. We have the capacity now to do the same with our other leading killers. And a fundamental paradigm shift is taking over, led by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, along the 6 pillars of lifestyle approach to staying healthy: healthy eating, physical activity, better managing stress, great quality sleep, avoiding risky addictions, and social connectedness are all part of it. And their vision is a world where this is now the foundation of a transformed, sustainable system of healthcare. So back to coronary artery disease, of course, this is our leading killer, and the results were nothing short of astounding in Dr. Ornish's work. Coronary artery disease patients with late stage on his program of Eat Well, Move Less, Move More, Love More, and Stress Less, had a 91% decrease in their frequency of angina, that's chest pain related to heart, decreased blood flow to the heart, in just a few weeks versus a 180% increase for the control group eating the same usual kind of post-cardiac diet. Later, Dr. Esselstyn showed the same thing with almost 200 patients. And here you can see it on an angiogram on a 43-year-old surgeon from the Cleveland Clinic, raggedy artery here that serves the main heart muscle, and then wide open just 3 years later. So he calls it a benign foodborne illness which may never exist or progress. This is our leading killer in our country with over 500,000 deaths a year. So we now know too that tobacco used to be our leading killer, and now I know, as David Katz mentioned on a recent podcast with you, it's now squarely on the shoulders of dietary risk. Our food is killing more people than any other single root cause. To think about how we can do better on this, I divide foods into 4 categories. That is unprocessed on the top, processed on the bottom, animal on the left, and plant on the right. And you get the idea. The processed animal foods are down here in the corner. Up here, at least, they look similar to the way nature presented them. Down here, your processed plant foods filled with fat, salt, and sugar. And up here is your foods that grown by nature in the plant kingdom in their most natural state. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the bottom half. I think most of your listeners are familiar with the fact that these frankenfoods are not really food for humans or animals. They're not food for anything. They're invented by the food industry, designed to addict us and keep us coming back. So let's focus on that top part. What about animal versus plant foods? And to think about this, I made a chart to see what makes a food health supporting. And let's compare plant and animal foods along these desirable characteristics: that is, rich in antioxidants, high in dietary fiber, alkaline, free of cholesterol, anti-inflammatory, rich in phytonutrients, and a balanced set of macronutrients. If you look first at antioxidants, they did a study of more than 3,100 foods, herbs, spices, and they found that the plant foods had an average of 1,157 units of antioxidants versus 18 for the animal foods. The plants make these to survive that photosynthesis and the free radicals that are formed. If animals eat them, they use them in their process, and not much is left over in their food. So the plant foods help us to deal with this fact that these free radicals are inevitably formed when you extract energy from food. And these nasty molecules called a free radical go around like a bull in a china shop, creating DNA damage, mutations leading to cancer, proteins denatured, immune response, and chronic inflammation, endothelial damage, that's the lining of our arteries, atherosclerosis and stroke, heart attacks, and then cellular damage leading to cell aging and organ dysfunction. So we put a 5-star here and a big X on the animal foods for rich in antioxidants. Next is fiber. We say when a woman's pregnant, she's eating for 2. And in reality, we're all the time eating for 38 trillion and 1. You're the one, and those 38 trillion microbes, mostly in your colon, are working along with you. And if you feed them well, they support immune function, hormone balance, manage toxins, nourish your colon with short-chain fatty acids. They lower inflammation, produce nutrients, signal satiety to keep people from overeating, and aid in nutrient absorption. In contrast, if you starve them with Big Macs and vanilla malts, they inflame the colon, produce toxins, increase the reabsorption of estrogens, increase serum cholesterol, create inflammation, leaky gut, and autoimmune disease. So critical that this nutrient called fiber that they feed on is a part of every diet every day. How much do we need? The average American only gets about 15 grams a day, and that's average, meaning half the people get less than that. Our dietary guidelines call for 30, but in reality, if you look at those populations that do best or study what our ancestors eat, it's more like 60 to 100 plus grams a day. The only way to do that, of course, is with whole plant foods, unprocessed plant foods. Animal foods, sugar and oil have none. Processed plant foods, minimal. So starving your microbiome from animal and processed foods or nourishing it with plant foods is critical. If you look at population studies, the more fiber in the diet goes up from 15 to 60 grams a day, down goes the incidence of heart disease, breast cancer, and diabetes. Now, it's not just the fiber that causes that. It's the fiber as a marker for these other nutrients too, because it only occurs in whole plant-based foods. So let's put a big 5-star for fiber and an X for animal. The next is alkaline. It turns out that the acid load to the kidneys is largely determined by the number of sulfur-containing amino acids in your proteins in your food. Those higher protein foods, fish, pork, and poultry, form sulfuric acid when they're metabolized, putting a big strain on the kidneys, leaching calcium from the bones, and creating stress through the body. You can help offset that some with fruits and vegetables, but once again, we see alkalinizing for fruits and veggies, beans to a lesser extent, and then very acidic for the animal foods. Next is cholesterol-free, and cholesterol is in all animal foods. Egg yolk is one of the biggest. It's in the fatty portion. So cheese, which is 70% fat, red meat are the highest. Well, why is this important? The average blood levels of cholesterol for Americans is 215, versus for many other populations, less than 150. In fact, if you look at rural China, the average cholesterol is 127, with a range from 80 to 160. And that's where we start in America at about 170 and go up to 290, some even higher. But in this environment, their coronary artery disease risk is virtually zero, and ours is virtually 100%. Even people who don't have a heart attack on autopsy, as young as 10 years old, show evidence for early heart disease. So there's no overlap in these curves. We need to do different. Cholesterol, a big marker there. Next is really important is we're recognizing the importance of inflammation. And we mentioned antioxidants and healthy microbiome. We'll come to phytonutrients, but plant foods are naturally anti-inflammatory, whole, unprocessed plant foods. In contrast, animal foods produce inflammation in several ways. The first is bacterial endotoxins, with the average quarter pounder having 100 million bacteria on it. These get there in the slaughter plants, so you can imagine where they come from. And they form endotoxins that survive cooking stomach acid and digestive enzymes and accelerate atherosclerosis, that's hardening of the arteries, insulin resistance, and diabetes. So avoid the endotoxins by avoiding the animal foods. The next is arachidonic acid. This is the substance our own bodies use to create inflammation when you need it. You step on a splinter or get a wound, your arachidonic acid helps bring in the troops, support the immune system to rev up. And plants don't have it, but other animals do, especially if you're a chicken kept in a warehouse with tens of thousands of others who are cooped up in a cage. And it goes into the meat and eggs and to a lesser extent in other meat. But when you eat any of these foods, you're eating an inflammation message. You're telling your body, arachidonic acid is coming, inflame everywhere. Next is heme iron. We used to think this was the preferable way to get iron because it's better absorbed. We now know that it's a pro-oxidant. This comes from animal blood and muscle and creates free radicals throughout the body. Increase the incidence of diabetes, heart disease, strokes, and several cancers linked with heme iron now. And it's not hard to get a milligram of heme iron, especially in the shellfish, but even most red meats are 2 to 3 milligrams of heme iron per 3-ounce portion. You know, how many people eat an 8-ounce or 16-ounce steak? And again, so multiply these by those amounts, and you see the risks people are taking by eating this unnatural form of iron in the human diet. The next is carnitine in meat, especially red meat, and choline in eggs, which metabolizes to trimethylamine. This goes to trimethylamine oxide, and this is a bad actor throughout the system, creating inflammation and leading to chronic disease. Here it is from the New England Journal in a more graphic form. Meat, dairy, and eggs going in the front door, heart attack, stroke, death, and revascularization needs coming out the back door. So this TMAO, we now know how to prevent it by not eating the foods that create it in the first place. I'm sorry, I know I'm talking fast, but I know this is being recorded too, so people can go back and watch again if they need to. And I want to leave plenty of time for questions, but we're most of the way through my slides. So this foodborne inflammation reflects itself in many of our most common diseases. I see every day in my office. Again, the most common, of course, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes are diseases of inflammation that are foodborne. So we'll put a big anti-inflammatory on the plant and the X over here. Next is phytonutrients. Over 30,000, possibly as many as 100,000 disease-preventing phytonutrients, including bioflavonoids in citrus, lycopene in tomatoes, phytates in beans, isoflavone in soy. And these are not optional. It's not just macronutrients and vitamins and minerals you need. You need these to support health, inflammation, help everything work, and increase immune function. And they only occur in plants. That's why it's called phyto. So these phytonutrients come from plants, and we'll put a 5-star there and an X in animal foods. And then finally, here's the one most people focus on is balanced, healthy macronutrients. If you look at areas of the world in the blue zones, people have an average of about 80% unrefined carbohydrates, 10% protein, and 10% fat in their diet. All of these animal foods have no carbs, no complex carbs, even in dairy products. And the fat and protein in there can be harmful. In fact, you can't be plant-based for more than a day or two before you get this question, right? So quiz time, and probably most of your listeners know the answer to this one. Of course, all of them have protein. DNA codes for protein. So every piece of lentil, every grain of rice, every apple, every living thing is made of protein. So all of these are great quality protein, and all we need is about 6 to 10% of our calories from protein in order to sustain ourselves. And by the way, they have all of the 8 essential amino acids too. So there's no need for food combining or careful planning to get all the protein you need. If you're meeting your calorie needs from whole plant foods, you will meet your protein needs. But it's even more important than that, because there really is a difference in quality of protein when you look at health supporting or not. Animal proteins, we already talked about, are much more acidic because of the high content of cysteine and methionine. They're more allergenic. Dairy and eggs are the 2 leading causes of food allergy. They're pro-inflammatory, and we talked about the reasons for that. And they stimulate a substance called IGF-1, which is a growth promoter. Now, when you're supposed to be eating animal protein in your first year of life in the form of mother's milk, this IGF-1 helps you to grow and triple your birth weight in the first year. When you eat animal protein after that or in adulthood, it still stimulates IGF-1. And the important thing there, that if you develop a cancer cell, it's like kerosene on a fire. So we used to think that animal fat was the whole problem, and industry to the rescue, right? Skim milk, low-fat cottage cheese, fat-free ballpark franks. I don't know how you do that. Egg beaters is mostly the egg whites. Thought we had it all figured out. Here's the healthy forms. Now recognizing that animal protein is linked with colon, breast, and prostate cancer, osteoporosis, chronic kidney disease, and independently increases cholesterol, so also contributes to all these. We can no longer say lean protein or skim milk or low-fat cheeses are good for you, because they all contain animal protein. In this study of respondents aged 50 to 65, those on the higher protein intake had a 75% increase in overall mortality and a 400% increase in cancer over the following 18 years. And there's that IGF-1 factor. These effects were abolished or attenuated if the proteins were plant-derived. So all proteins are not alike. Better to have plant protein. Next is fats. We already said animals are the only ones with cholesterol. They have much more saturated fat. Do watch out for palm and coconut oil, which are high in saturated fat. They have naturally occurring trans fats, which are the ones they used in processed foods for many years. And the FDA banned now because of their link with cancer and heart disease. Well, trans fats still naturally occur in animal foods. And they're much higher in heavy metals and contaminants than plants because that's where the animal sequesters those over a lifetime. So when you eat an animal, you're having all the contaminants that it may have had over its lifetime. And then finally, the carbs, animals have none, or in the case of milk, sugar, which is lactose. Plants instead are rich in complex carbohydrates, high in fiber, and no lactose, small amounts of galactose. So for all three of those, fat, protein, and the carbs, plants are all much better source in adequate and better amounts. So I don't know, I pause here and say, are we noticing a pattern here? Is this just a coincidence that these foods are health supporting and these are health degrading? Well, no, it's not. Any animal is ideally designed to function on those foods that it evolved on. And we have for millions of years been largely plant eaters, 95% plus. And so no coincidence that we do best on those kind of foods. So that brings us to kind of whole food plant-based approach. The whole food means unprocessed. Plants means increasing or exclusively plant foods from the new 4 food groups. Should include nuts and seeds in here too, which are also healthy. And this is why the American College of Lifestyle Medicine puts this forward as their preferred diet for chronic disease prevention and reversal. You can see the new plate there without the glass of milk, with whole grains, healthy proteins from nuts, seeds, and beans, and half your plate fruits and vegetables with water as the beverage. There's one other factor, in addition to what naturally occurs, oftentimes contaminants or infections within the animal foods. And I'll just use the bovine leukemia virus as a quick example of one of many. It shows that what we've seen is that a vast majority of cows are infected with this virus. And we used to think, well, so what? It's a bovine virus. It may cause leukemia in cows, but people seem okay with it, right? Not after this study showed that when you take breast cancer, look at it in the microscope and study the DNA from these bovine leukemia virus are stitched in there, indicating the smoking gun that this bovine leukemia virus from either rare red meat or dairy products may be responsible for as many as 37% of breast cancer cases. Where's the outrage about this? Where's the headlines? We need to let people know that just like viruses can cause cancers like cervical cancer from HPV or sarcoma from HIV, several viruses can cause cancer. We now have direct evidence that this foodborne virus can directly link to breast cancer in humans. So what does this all mean for people with an interest in optimum health? Well, we got to look at things like this. Per capita chicken intake that when I was born was just 10 pounds a year, and then came the kernel, has gone up dramatically. We now know that they have also obesified chickens. They're 4 times the size, with instead of 2 grams of fat per chicken breast, it's over 20. And we now know that saturated and cholesterol-laden fat is linked not only with heart disease, strokes, high blood pressure, but also diabetes. That fat gets into the muscle cells, interfering with the insulin signaling process, and is the root cause of type 2 diabetes. Cheese also gone up dramatically, being 70% fat and high in saturated fat, tells us that this curve of the rising incidence of diabetes is directly linked with these epidemics of chicken and cheese. This is a key thing. We can make a difference. We can, as Dr. Barnard says in his book, reverse type 2 diabetes or prevent it from even coming on. So here's kind of the summary in a graphic form. I think we all accept that if a tree or any plant is growing in healthy soil that's aerated, moist, has lots of nutrients and space for water, it's going to grow healthy, active with a lot of leaves. If it's compacted and dry without nutrients, it's not going to do very well. Well, the same is true for humans. If on the left side here, we follow a whole food plant-based lifestyle with daily exercise, manage our stress, and have social connections. We are rich in antioxidants, develop a very healthy, active microbiome that supports health and immune function. We're rich in phytonutrients, alkalinizing, that leads to strong blood flow to our tissues, low levels of inflammation, healthy organs, vitality, positive wellness, independence, freedom, and getting to do what you want to do without the need for a lot of medicines. Now, obviously, these are generalizations. Anything can happen to anybody as an individual, but why not turn the odds in your favor instead of doing this side where most people do and end up the cascade here with diabetes, chronic pain, depression, fatigue, and dependence. So think of this tree as you think about what you're going to put on your plate, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because every vote counts about whether you're going to get towards the health vitality side or the dependence and chronic disease side. Before we finish, just two other quick things I mentioned at the beginning of my journey was Earth Day. And we know that eating whole food plant-based also saves resources that are vitally needed. AJ, I think you're in California, you're feeling the pressures of lack of water, our burning of the Amazon forest. And we also forget that when we see this on the grill, what's behind it are sentient beings that can think and feel and understand pain and have families. So the triple win, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the bottom line is eat as if your health, really the planet and the animals that we share it with, and your life depend on it, because they do. And one of my favorite quotes is, if you have your health, you have 1,000 dreams. And when you don't, you have just one. So here we are in Sedona, enjoying all that life has to offer. And let's turn it over to questions, because again, I hope I didn't talk too fast, that we didn't give people time to think of questions. And at the same time, let's leave time now for whatever they want to talk about.
Great. Well, thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. And of course, we will have to watch it again to glean all the nuggets that you taught us. Okay, so the questions in the chat. The first one I saw from Anna was, what do you do if you test positive for COVID?
Oh, wow, great question. COVID is obviously can be a devastating disease, but what we learned early on, in fact, right out of Italy in the early stages, 94% of the deaths were in people with one of a handful of chronic diseases, heart disease, COPD, diabetes, and were diseases that put you at risk by creating an environment of chronic inflammation, an environment where blood flow is not active, where the immune system is compromised, trying to clean up after the lifestyle and the diseases that develop. So step one, of course, is to make sure your diet's as clean as possible. You can't change what you did before, but if you're diagnosed with COVID, quickly go all in for whole food plant-based eating with an emphasis on fruits and vegetables. Some of the best anti-inflammatory foods include the berries. And I love your earrings. Are those blueberries?
No, but they do kind of look like them, don't they?
They're perfect. The blueberries, even higher than blueberries, is goji berries on the scale of antioxidants. But all berries are good. And the green leafy vegetables, broccoli, kale, and collards, beet greens, and cauliflower. Those cruciferous vegetables are especially immune supporting. And then turmeric, the spice turmeric is an Indian spice, has a strong anti-inflammatory effect. The curcumin in there is anti-inflammatory. And in an environment where a virus is attacking you, inflammation is the main thing that then kills people. The immune system overreacts, creates inflammation, lungs fill up. So you want a strong anti-inflammatory effect. And you can either get the root and put it in your smoothie or in your stir fry, or you can get the powder and put it in almost anything. I put it in my oatmeal every morning. So if you're diagnosed with COVID, number one is to clean up your diet to a whole food, plant-based, healthy version diet. Number two is exercise. Now, I don't mean go run any marathons. Listen to your body. You're going to need extra rest when you're sick too. But take at least a short walk every day. Bed rest is one of the worst things you can do. You got to get things circulating. So again, don't get me wrong. Don't go out and do what you've been doing for your routine. You do need to back off. but I don't want anybody thinking, oh, I've got the COVID, I better just lie in bed. Get up, get moving as best you're able. Number three is you're going to need more sleep. And you want it to be good quality sleep, so set the stage for that with more recognized principles for sleep hygiene. Stay on a regular schedule. Sleep is vital for repair time. A majority of your repair happens during 8% of the day and when you're in deep sleep. And your body needs a lot of repair when it's fighting a battle like COVID. I guess number four is drink plenty of water. And concurrent with that, avoid substances that could further compromise. Obviously, no smoking, no alcohol, limit your caffeine, and take really extra good care of yourself. Now, it's kind of funny because people say, what do I do when I get COVID or when I get cancer or when I'm diagnosed with diabetes? The real answer is to kind of move upstream and do as many of these things as you can now before you get those things. I don't wait. We know now that it's also important to set the stage because once you've got diabetes or heart disease or other, that's not reversed in a minute when you find out you have COVID. Develop a healthy lifestyle now so that the chronic diseases that may already be brewing or yet to occur never have a chance to bloom. And then you do better with not only COVID, but other infectious disease, with cancer if you get it, with heart disease, with any of these. So great question. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I saw a question from Lori. Can you please speak again about what leaches or depletes calcium from the bones?
Yes, good question. The calcium balance is not because calcium balance is carefully controlled by four little glands in our neck. They're about the size of a pea called your parathyroid glands. They really don't relate to your thyroid gland. They're called parathyroid because they're right next to it. And it's a much bigger butterfly-shaped gland in the middle of your neck that controls your metabolism. But your parathyroid glands can do amazing things. They can take the calcium that you eat and have more of it be absorbed. They can have less of it be excreted. They can use it differently. So osteoporosis, which is thinning of the bones and epidemic in our country, is not a calcium deficiency disease. In fact, the World Health Organization recommendations for calcium intake are a lot lower than in America because what we're doing is wasting calcium out the urine largely as a result of the animal proteins. When you eat, I mentioned that the amino acids cysteine and methionine contain sulfur, and a part of buffering that excess sulfur metabolized to sulfuric acid, a part of buffering that is leaching calcium and phosphorus from the bones to help that. Initially, it comes from muscles, but ultimately a long-term imbalance occurs, and that animal proteins can lead to a leaching of calcium over time from the bones. Now, of course, vitamin D deficiency can also, we get a lot of sun in Michigan in the summer, but folks in the northern climates may want to take a vitamin D supplement when the sun is not out. And weight-bearing exercise is critical. Smoking also contributes to osteoporosis and limiting alcohol as well. Salt also is a component. So yes, there's a lot of things that contribute to that, but it's not the standard wisdom of take your calcium supplements and you'll be fine. In fact, we now know that too much calcium supplements can calcify the arteries and increase the risk of heart disease. So get your calcium from the same place our ancestors did, beans and greens.
Yeah. Jesse's commenting, I don't know why there hasn't been more emphasis on what Dr. Breakey is talking about right now. Why do you think that there aren't as many physicians interested in lifestyle medicine?
Well, there's many reasons for that. One of them is it's not what we're taught. And you can ask another question, why aren't we taught that if it's what saves and prevents most life? And we'll come back to that. But number one, doctors really don't know this. And it's a lot to keep up with just what's going on in regular medicine, let alone learn a whole new field that is lifestyle medicine. Now, fortunately, more and more are. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine has started with 100 and some graduates their first year in 2017, and now thousands are graduating. So more and more are changing. But number one is it's a new field that many don't know. The second is it's I don't mean in a bad way, but it's about the money. What there's a good movie, if you haven't seen it, called Escape Fire by Don Berwick. And there's it really emphasizes the fact that the system is making a lot of money on the way it is. We have huge coronary care unit systems and cancer treatment centers and hospitals and emergency rooms that again, they're doing a great job at the stage they're at. And that's what pays. If you're setting up a hospital, you better have the finest orthopedic unit and stroke care and bypass surgery, because that's how you're going to cover your revenue. You put in a disease reversal program or a program that's not even reimbursed by insurance, nobody comes. And by the way, if you're successful, less people need your services that do pay. It just doesn't add up. The finances are completely reversed, so that doctors, health systems, and others are rewarded financially. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You have to make a living. It's the way the system's designed. And then the third is that just like with smoking back in the 60s and 70s, the food companies have borrowed a playbook from the tobacco companies to design studies that they don't have to prove that their food is safe. All they have to do is create enough doubt. And people, as John McDougall says, people love to read that what they love to eat is good for them. So you see these Time magazine, butter is back, or, good news, it's not cholesterol after all. Well, these are rogue studies sponsored by industry that I'll give you an example on the cholesterol one. They take people on an average cholesterol diet, which is over 250 milligrams a day. They add an egg a day for another amount, and then they compare the two and say, wow, there's no difference. So cholesterol doesn't matter. Where it matters is if you don't have any at all. And the curve goes up pretty steep here for risk. But when you get up here, it levels out. So it's like saying, a common example that's used is if you crash into a brick wall at 90, 100, or 110 miles per hour, the mortality rate is the same. So speed doesn't matter. We've got these studies out there that are purporting to show that cholesterol is okay, that animal foods are actually good for you, that it's overrated, that keto is a better way to lose weight. And they create enough doubt for people, and they're publicized enough in the media that people say, well, if even the experts can't agree, I'm just going to do what tastes good to me. And what tastes good is what their dopamine pathways in their brain are rewarded for, and that's fat, salt, and sugar. So you've got a system that's designed to reward disease care, a populace that's confused by industry that profits from that. And it's not just pharmaceutical and health industry, but agribusiness, restaurant association, all of them. And it's an ideal mix for misinformation, for ways of helping to keep people, as David Katz said on your show, addicted to these frankenfoods that have no resemblance to what real food should be. So that's a few of the reasons. As I could say, that there's a bit of glimmer of hope there that more and more doctors, more and more people across the country are starting a grassroots movement. And Chef AJ, you're a part of that by bringing shows every day. How do you do that since March? You are helping people to understand that there is a better way, that there is a science behind this that says we can be empowered to bring, that's what I call my talk, health is a gift you give yourself. So thank you for being part of the solution.
Yeah, thank you. So Elizabeth wants to know why there are so many people that got the COVID vaccine and even boosters that still got COVID and got it more than once.
Oh, yeah, great question. Of course, vaccines do not prevent the illness in all people. And they have the COVID vaccine, for example, was over 90% effective. But that still means when you have a population of 250 million, that still means tens of thousands of people just going to get it because the vaccine either didn't take in them or wasn't enough to get them going. So that's part of it. The vaccine effectiveness also wanes over time. So you get it one time, and that's why we give boosters. But between shot 2 and the next booster 6 months later, about 6% per month means the effectiveness is only in the 60% range. And that means a much larger percent can get it again. So in a public health manner, it's not that the vaccine is intended to totally prevent COVID. It does a good job of helping decrease the incidence of it. But what it does is turn it from a life-threatening disease for mostly people with chronic conditions into one that's much more manageable. If you looked at during the second and third surge, the percent of people in the hospital who were unvaccinated was into the 90s. Almost all of the ones that were in the hospital were the non-vax. So the vaccines did a great job of helping us to prevent. Now, I guess, again, got to be careful. There's this place for vaccines, but don't think of it as it's going to save you in all cases, and therefore you can eat and do and drink, and be merry and smoke whatever you want, because what's even more important is your host defenses, is your immune system being fine-tuned to fight it. So vaccines are a good tool, but it's not going to prevent all cases, and therefore all the more important that you watch for good lifestyle measures.
Great, thank you. You are a family practice doctor, so you see people basically from cradle to grave, don't you?
Absolutely, 0 to 100 and then some.
Wow, and that's probably why your practice is full, because you keep them well.
That's right. My practice has been closed to new patients for several years. I told you I just still take new newborns, and some from the same family or ones that moved away and come back to see me. So it takes care of the ones that move away or do happen to die of old age. And of course, although I talk with everybody and try to inspire them, not everybody listens. I have a lot of patients who still eat however and whatever they want, but at least they are given the opportunity. They can't say they didn't have that. But yeah, I see the whole breadth of everything, and that unique position allows me to be able to see the differences too between those who don't take care of themselves, not just with diet, but with other things, and those who do and go on thriving into their vital elder years.
So it sounds like the only way to get in your practice is to be born into a family that's already a patient.
Something like that. You know, I have some great partners. If people are interested to look me up, 5 of us now, including Dr. Sunderman, who you mentioned. She's one of my colleagues in our Lifestyle Medicine Institute at our company, IHA, are here in the greater Ann Arbor area. We do video visits for people around Michigan, and we're developing new ones too. We've got at least 3 or 4 of our colleagues from across IHA who are going to become ACLM certified this year. And because I'm head of our Lifestyle Medicine Institute, I'm helping the others to kind of move up a bar too. So what I want to help people see is that you can now more easily than ever find a doctor who at least will not scoff at what you're doing, and will hopefully see it as a positive. And I've seen that transition too. You know, you probably too, from 1977, where you were looked at as a, oh, you're weird. And now people, you tell them you're whole food plant-based, they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. It's much more understood that it's a good thing to do, and it's easier than ever to get the advantages.
Great, thank you. This question was actually emailed in advance from Brenda, and she says that my recent blood work showed the 25 vitamin D levels to be 56. I'm taking 6,000 international units daily to achieve this. I'm 63 years old. Prior to taking that vitamin D K2 supplement, my levels were 20 to 30. The CMP and CBC values were fine. My current practitioner says the ideal vitamin D range is 70 to 100. Is it necessary to take high levels of vitamin D and K2? Is it needed with vitamin D, and how much of each should be taken?
Great question. The whole supplement field is rife with unscientific people working to sell you stuff. And of course, vitamin D is an important vitamin. And if you live in a climate where you get sunshine, boy, you can get tens of thousands of units in a half hour of sun exposure. So that could be easy. If you live in Hawaii or California, Florida, you may be fine. But for most people, as I think I mentioned at the beginning, 1 to 2,000 units a day during the winter is a good insurance policy. As far as the levels, I wouldn't get so stuck on a number. I do check levels when I'm not sure about it. Some people are only 8 or 10, and that's critical. You do have to get them up. Some people are just below 30, which is sort of the cutoff of what most consider as normal. And there probably is some good evidence that more like 60 range is a good range to be. It wouldn't hurt to be 60 to 100, but I don't think it's necessary that you keep pushing your supplement dose to try to get up there. Dr. Greger has some great videos on this. If you go to nutritionfacts.org and search his for vitamin D, he really reviews the science on it. And again, it's one of the supplements he does recommend. Others like Dr. T. Colin Campbell point out that vitamin D isn't really a vitamin at all. It's formed, of course, from sunlight, and none of the most natural way to get it is that way, is by the sun, but also that your body can convert vitamin D into a more active form of vitamin D when it needs to. So don't get too hung up on trying to make it super high. We did note that those with vitamin D deficiency don't do as well with infectious disease like COVID. So do make sure you're getting it one way or another. On the other supplements, and it's a short list, of course, it's B12, either 500 micrograms a day of either cyanocobalamin or metcobalamin, and or 2,000 units once a week. Your liver stores it, so you don't have to get it every day. Is critical to help for blood formation and nerve function. And a source of iodine, usually some kind of seaweed daily, is a good idea. As far as K2, I don't know, again, controversial. Some say you need that on a whole food plant-based diet. I'm not sure it's really essential. Personally, I don't worry about it, but I don't think it'll hurt anything if you want to take a small supplement of that. And then the other one is the DHA EPA, which are the long-chain fatty acids. I eat 3 tablespoons of ground flaxseed a day and rely on my body to convert those short chain to long chain ones because I eat healthy and take care of myself. Dr. Furman points out that not everybody does, and how do you know you do? So as insurance policy, take this pollutant-free algae-based DHA EPA, which are the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids. And that's it. All the other multivitamins and calciums and tons of supplements that people bring in, they dump them out on my table. I say, I'm going to save you some money. And most of them are fine with that. Get your nutrients the way nature intended from real food.
Yep, sounds good. I have restless legs. I am on gabapentin. I want to try another med. What is the best med with the least side effects?
I can't give medical advice on the, and in fact, I should caveat all of this. Make sure to work with your medical professional before making any major changes, and certainly don't stop any meds before talking and working with your doctor. On the other side of that coin, if you decide to go all in, if you're inspired and you say, I'm going to go whole food plant-based, and you're on blood pressure or diabetes meds in particular, certain ones, you may need to decrease those pretty quickly. So tell your doc you're doing this and say, hey, I'm going to be doing this, whether it's a jumpstart program or a quick start. You'll want to be ready to lower those meds in association with your doc. But back to your question, with restless leg syndrome, commonly a whole food plant-based diet will help for that. And maybe if you're watching your show, you're already doing that. But muscles can get inflamed like any other. So see where you can fine tune that. Drink plenty of water. Muscles that are dehydrated have a harder time kind of not getting jumpy. You might find that a magnesium supplement at bedtime is helpful. 300 milligrams can help with either cramps or jumpy legs. And limit caffeine and alcohol. Of course, those can upset a balance in your system that might be contributing to those. As far as medications, one of the more common ones is the Requip. Maybe you've already tried that. It's not a scheduled medicine like gabapentin, so it might be preferable in that manner. But again, talk to your doctor about whether it's right for you. Any medicine needs to be prescribed in association with your other medical conditions and whether it might interact with others. So work on some natural ways if you can, and then talk with your doc about alternatives if you want to get off the gabapentin. By the way, it depends what dose you're on gabapentin, but you'll probably need to taper slowly. It can have a good withdrawal symptom, a bad withdrawal symptom if you stop it suddenly.
Thank you. Mona says, do you prefer turmeric root or powder as a better option for pain and inflammation?
Wow, it's interesting. They both have their advantages. First of all, both are good. Whatever form you can get in is good. And I forget exactly which direction it is, but the main advantage of turmeric and both the curcumin it contains and other phytonutrients that come with it, don't just take curcumin supplements, use the turmeric, are both cancer prevention and probably helping to suppress existing cancers too. We have some good evidence in prostate cancer in particular, is cancer suppression and anti-inflammation. Again, I forget which is which, but one or the other is better at one or the other. They both help for both. And I know Dr. Greger has a good video on this too. If you look up turmeric or curcumin on his videos, he'll help you with that question. So I guess answer to your question is whichever one you can get in, first of all, if you like one or the other better, go for it. And if you don't mind both, use some of each. They sell them in most grocery stores now, and you just, as the root, keep it in your fridge and just chop it up in your smoothie, your stir fry, your oatmeal, or just use the powder, which obviously is much more convenient. For my oatmeal, my steel cut oats in the morning, I pre-mix the ground flaxseed, the cinnamon, the pumpkin pie spice, and the turmeric, and I just put 3 tablespoons on and mix it in after it's cooked, and gives me a good, and top it with berries. It gives me a great start to the day.
Wow, that seems like everybody's breakfast. I never understood the allure of oatmeal. Just don't like it.
Okay.
I just don't. It's just the texture. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I like oat groats.
Yes.
Oat groats are like, but I just never got, it's like a glucky. I just don't like it. Yet well, it seems like everybody I talk to, that's their breakfast.
Have you tried the steel cut oats? Have you done the whole real one?
Again, it's just too porridgey. You know, I'm not I don't like creamy foods.
Okay. You may be overcooking it, but anyway, try some steel cut, make it a little al dente, and see if it works. But if it doesn't, don't worry. There are plenty of other.
And I don't like sweet breakfasts either, though, because
right.
To me that sets me up to have sweet cravings all day. And
that's right.
So I like savory breakfast. So what do you eat the rest of the day? So every morning, steel cut oat with berries and your mixtures of spices and toppings. What's your lunch? I imagine you probably bring your lunch to work.
I do every day. I bring my lunch, and why don't I start with dinner, because lunch is often leftovers from the night before. For dinner, commonly my wife is a great cook, by the way. I know she's still aspires to be as good as you, but will often on Sunday put together some kind of a great white bean chili or a minestrone, a lentil soup. She makes red bean chili. She'll make a big pot of a really hearty soup. It's got quinoa, grains, beans, vegetables in there. And that kind of becomes, a big part of what I have every day. I just pop it in the microwave at work. And then I always have a big salad once or twice a day. When my wife's working late, she owns a hair salon in Plymouth. I will come home and get out my big salad bowl. It's literally 12 inches and 4 inches deep. And I throw in the arugula and the spinach and the romaine lettuce. And then I top it with some chopped red bell peppers. I steam a couple of mushrooms, put some red onion, chickpeas, a sweet potato, top it with some 18-year balsamic vinegar, and put on some sprouts, and then top it with pumpkin seeds and sprinkle some oregano and put in some more sprouts. And it's like dinner in a bowl. It's like, and I use different flavors vinegar too. We go to the olive oil store and skip the oil side and just go over here and get the ginger blackberry or the spicy Korean. You've seen them, the olive oil stores. And I just use plain vinegar on there, or you can make a dressing with hummus and apple cider vinegar. I put a little oregano in there. I try to follow some Chef AJ recipes because you want to make it variety, healthy. And I think that's another thing to mention with fiber. Your microbiome thrive on different types of fiber. There are thousands of different types of fiber. And a lot of people feel like, well, I'm taking Metamucil or Fiberall or whatever it is, or I'm getting, my bowels are moving again. They've solved the symptom of fiber deficiency called constipation, but they haven't nourished their microbiome. You want diversity down there. So you want to have at least 30 different types of plant foods every week. I kind of shoot for 15 a day. And by having, you saw my salad, it's got 15 just in that. But by having that diversity of plant foods too, that gives you the phytonutrients, allows for the absorption of some fat-soluble phytonutrients when you put walnuts or ground flaxseed in with it. So yes, eat variety of plants and make it fun and tasty. So then I often make the lunch the night before while we make a big enough salad that the leftovers go in the tray and in comes the minestrone. We like to grill in the summer. We put cauliflower and broccoli and portobello and pineapple and corn on the cob on the grill there. And we like to make miso stew, not just a couple of pieces of tofu and a scallion floating around, but cabbage and red cabbage and onions and mushrooms in there. We love to make ethnic foods, whether it's whole grain pastas or chickpea pasta, red lentil pastas with a marinara. We love to make stir fries. I make a peanut cilantro stir fry with vinegar, and we love Mediterranean. So I don't know. Again, when people ask, what do you eat? It's almost like, you poor thing, there's nothing. And I know this person doesn't mean it that way. They're probably just thinking, what do you, Dr. Breakey, eat? But you probably get that a lot too, Chef AJ. You poor thing, you can't even eat spare ribs. And you're like, well, I can, but I don't want to. It's like, but they're feeling sorry for you because your diet's so limited. And the truth is quite the opposite, that my patients, the people I see who inspire to go plant-based, and I'm sure who you do, find a whole new world out there instead of being stuck in a rut. They explode with new ideas, options, and flavors. So I love eating.
Well, I think after 45 years, people have gotten used to the idea that there is food vegans can eat, but if you don't eat sugar, oil, salt, or God forbid, drink alcohol, then you are so deprived that there couldn't possibly be anything that tastes good.
That's right. How could you do that? Well, they're thinking from their perspective, which, is hard to see sometimes. If you're a fish, you see water. So from their perspective.
You got a lot of good sayings today. Was your wife plant-based when you guys met and got married, or did she become that way?
Interesting. She worked at a horse rescue farm called Horses Haven up at, and a lot of her friends up there who were helping the animals were also plant-based. So she was already plant slant. She was interested, but she came from a family that meat was what it was. She was the griller in her family. It's what you did. It's part of every meal. So she was kind of in a transition phase when we met. And then I should have her tell the story. But we go out to eat, and she'd order a salmon or some rice and broccoli, something that she thought was healthy, and she'd look across and go, "Wow, next time I'm getting what you're having," because by the time you ask them for what you want, to get a salad and tell them to leave that off and do this, it's just as good or better. So gradually, I'd say over a couple of years, she moved to that way, and now she's been all in for over a decade.
Wow. So it took her. I said, wait, so you mean it took that long in the marriage for her to?
Oh, this is my second marriage.
Okay. Well, because I was going to say,
Yeah. We got married 10 years ago.
Didn't mean to be nosy, but it's like, boy, that was like 35 years. But are there any children, and are your children plant-based?
Yes, I've got two daughters. My wife just walked in. I'll see if she wants to say hi to everybody. This is Kimberly.
Hi. I hear you make a lot of good chili.
Oh my God. I make a lot of amazing soups. I do. Yes. It's my favorite thing to do.
Well, then why don't you come on the show and make one for our audience?
Well, I don't
There
know
you
if I have
go.
anything that special. I usually just, I don't really follow a recipe. I just do my own thing. So
I know what you mean.
I don't know. Yeah. And you probably do the same thing, but you
I'm the
have
same way. That's why it's so hard to write the books, because it's
I
like,
know.
I don't know, just depends what I have. It depends what I
Right,
feel.
right. I know we went out with our friends on Saturday and I made tofu egg salad, and then I did an Asian like spring roll salad. And she was like, send me your recipes. I'm like, I don't have a recipe. So I follow Kiki, Plentiful Kiki on Instagram. Do you know about her? Yeah. Okay. So I sent the link to Instagram to her because she's got little kids and she does a lot of pre-chopping, batch cooking, things like that. So, I don't know that I really have like anything to contribute. I'm not, actually Bob's a better cook than I am.
No, you're now famous. Chef AJ has and her thousands of followers.
I know
But
you are.
it's still nice to see people cook that way, because I think that's how people can learn, not just by following a recipe. Here
was a really nice thing. And pardon me, I've just been out in the garden, so it's 97 here today. She texted me back. I just said, thanks for coming out with us on the boat, blah, blah, blah. She says, you inspired me so much. She's like, I'm on a new food rant. And she said, I haven't fed my kids cheese pizza or hot dogs since, So I'm like, anyway, I inspired her. So it was awesome.
That's
like beautiful. I love your top. I don't know if it's a dress or whatever, but it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for being plant-based.
Oh, it's changed my life. Yep.
Oh, how did it change your life?
Well,
there you go.
I had a heart condition and I had diverticulosis. So, both of those have just kind of gone away, and it actually happened like after I gave up the eggs and the cheese and the fish. So yeah. Yep.
Perfect. Is Dr. Breakey your doctor? Because he's not taking new patients,
He's not allowed to be my doctor, but we play doctor at home, So yeah, unfortunately, it's hard. My doctor just kind of left our group and moved up to Northern Michigan. So now I have a new doctor that doesn't know much about plant-based. I mean, she's not, but she attends some of the sessions that Bob puts on, but can't really have much of a conversation with her,
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's making a big impact in his group. He really is. I mean,
that's good. That's what I was going to ask. Have any of your colleagues joined the team since watching you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll let you.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Oh my gosh. And I follow you as well. So.
Oh, thank you. She's lovely.
But thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, if you ever change your mind, because there is something valuable about watching somebody just do something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Without a recipe,
Maybe we can do like a team. He does a lot of this with some of the groups that he's involved in,
Yeah, guys, you could cook together or you can compete against.
There you go.
Nice.
All right.
Dueling chilies.
Why
Yeah.
not?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. She's so nice and pretty.
I know. Yeah.
So that's so funny that it's so funny, like when, she probably knows more than her doctor about nutrition.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, the other funny thing is that she owns a hair salon, and she's all day with people who are coming to her, with their questions and concerns. And now that they know she's married to a doctor, they ask her like, hey, I had gallstones, or my friend had this. And so she's always been part psychologist, helping people through challenge. But they come to her now like, what should I do for this? And she helps inspire them. I think she's lost a couple too, because they don't come to her for that. When she tells them the truth, they're like, oh, I didn't want to hear that.
That is hilarious. Yeah. Well, people want to hear good news about their bad habits, not bad news.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So yes, I have 5 colleagues now, 6 who are ACLM certified in our group, and 3 or 4 more coming this year. And the average of the others is moving up because we hold monthly lifestyle medicine interest groups. We're referring people with our colleagues at Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. You probably know Ted Barnett.
Love him.
Yeah, and he and I work closely together to do what's called lifestyle medicine grand rounds for providers from all over the country, really all over the world. We put on a monthly seminar to help inspire. Many of our docs are watching that. I'm with a plant-based nutrition support group. I've probably seen Paul Chatlin and his group, and people can get good teachings, recipes, cooking classes at pbnsg.org. I am on the PPOD board. I was going to mention this weekend is our next conference that people are looking more about for the why, like what's in this and the science. The Plant-Based Prevention of Disease Conference used to be once a year, is now 3 times a year. And the next one in Raleigh, North Carolina is this weekend, with both an in-person and virtual option. So people can attend anywhere. And if you're either nursing, dietetics, physician, you can get CME or continuing education credits in an unbiased, evidence-based approach with plant-based. And Chef AJ, you spoke at the PPOD.
I spoke there. Are you speaking this weekend?
I'm not. I did last year, and I'm letting some of my colleagues take over this time. So yes, we are working to inspire people across our group and across the country to recognize that there is a better way. And boy, when you practice this way, it's much more satisfying. You know, as John McDougall says, my patients get well. It's like fun to see them, and they thank you for it. So, and then cycling back right before Kimberly came, you asked about my daughters. I've got 35-year-old and a 31-year-old daughters who are both plant-based, and the younger, in fact, is all in with CrossFit too. She works out, does her best to stay in shape, and finds that being plant-based helps her with that as well. So yep, and now the next generation. I got 2 granddaughters, and they're I don't know exactly because they live in DC, but they're inspiring also to stay and eat healthy with their whole lives before them. So it's best to start as early as you can, but it's never too late.
That's great. You mentioned 18-year-old balsamic vinegar. You're going to get 2 bottles of 18-year-old balsamic vinegar just for being a guest on the show.
Oh.
And there might be some flavors that you can't get where you are, like maybe you've never had the curry or the 7-herb Italian, because I know that a lot of the companies make this, but this company that I love, California Balsamic, has some pretty unique flavors like teriyaki that you might want to try.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
I don't tell people till after they're on. I don't want people coming on the show just for the free vinegar.
That's right.
Here's a great question from Frances. She says, I'm new to this way of eating and spending lots of time watching Chef AJ videos to try and learn. Thanks, Frances. Which veggies are the most powerful ones to use to reverse all the damage I've done to my body? I have a guess, but I'm going to see if it's what I'm thinking.
Yes, great question. As you're implying, within those quadrants, remember the 4 quadrants: unprocessed, processed, plant, and other. There are nuances within those, so that some are even better than others. And I think I like what Dr. Greger says about this. It's when something says, "Is this healthy?" It's compared to what. So first of all vegetables are healthy. If it's an edible vegetable, don't think that you should only eat the best and healthiest ones. Eat a broad variety. Secondly, none are essential. So if you just can't stand Brussels sprouts, that's okay. Don't eat them. You know, that's okay. If you can't stand mushrooms, which have a unique set of micronutrients and are super healthy for you, then get some nutritional yeast. It's like single-celled mushrooms that still have some of those same micronutrients. So there are ways to get, if there are ones that have more unique components. So with that caveat, those that are healthiest to help reverse your damage of the vegetable side are the cruciferous vegetables, the green leafy, kale and collards, broccoli and cauliflower, your beet greens. These are the ones that contain the precursors to sulforaphane, which is both anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory. So without a doubt, you should have greens every day. Spinach is good too, but it's not a cruciferous, but any green leafies are good. Same with lettuce. And on the fruit side, the berries are the most packed with phytonutrients and antioxidants, tasty and among the healthiest of fruits as well. On the whole grain side, Quinoa is one most people, I think, know about on your show, but if you're new to this, you may not have heard of it. A great grain, great source of high quality plant protein, fiber. And on the bean side, wow, once again, it's hard because they're all good. I don't want you to think you just should eat some, but lentils are very easy to cook, to fit into many recipes. Chickpeas or garbanzos, and you can have lentil-based pastas now too, red lentil or garbanzo pastas. So give you some general guidelines in the different quadrants. And then on top of all that, herbs and spices. Per ounce, there are more phytonutrients and antioxidants than in any of the others. And that's why we emphasize a variety of herbs and spices, including garlic, onion, the alum family, and the turmeric and ground flaxseed, healthy omega-3s. So I don't know, there's a lot of them. So that's why I'm trying to kind of rattle off. And I don't want you to get stuck on one, but I hope that gives you some good guidelines.
Right. Well, I was sure you were going to say greens at some point.
You got it. Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying, what a great presentation. Thank you for all that you do. There's a comment. Thank you so much for showcasing Dr. Breakey. He's such a true treasure for us here in Michigan. Everyone deserves to benefit from his expertise.
Thank you. For the person who's new too, I think you might like PBNSG. This is their cookbook, perfectly plant-based. And once again, if you go to pbnsg.org, you'll find a host of resources, from cooking classes to expert speakers to small group meetings to support systems for subgroups, whether you've got diabetes or others. And I think you get this cookbook and a T-shirt if you become a member. So for new people, things like PBNSG, Chef AJ, nutritionfacts.org are all great resources for you.
I've had several people from PBNSG on the show, like Lauren Burnick, many times doing cooking demos. I've had Paul Chatlin on, so it's a wonderful organization. Question from Lugina, I hope I pronounced your name right. What do you think about melatonin as a sleeping supplement?
Melatonin is the substance our own brains use to help get us ready for sleep. It's secreted by a pineal gland in the middle of your brain in response to darkness. Remember, our ancestors didn't have artificial lights, so 12 hours a day and 12 hours of sun led to a pretty predictable pattern for people that allows the melatonin to come out and produce a relaxation effect. Rather than a supplement, though, it's best to help it induce naturally. To avoid bright lights, and especially blue lights later. If you're doing TV or computer in the evening, I had built into my regular glasses just some blue filters to decrease the amount. And in other words, help your own body to produce it by having a wind down routine, by not doing TV and internet for an hour before bed, by going to bed about the same time and getting up about the same time, even on weekends, by having a routine, what are called your circadian rhythms, including melatonin secretion, goes into a pattern that is much better than taking it in a pill form. Probably and over time, it doesn't really help. It wears off. You need more of the same. It helps get to sleep, but it doesn't help stay asleep. So patients on melatonin commonly say, well, yeah, it made me help get to sleep, but then I couldn't get to sleep after I got up to pee in the night. So there may be a place for it when you're trying to reset your clock for jet lag, if you go to Europe or Hawaii. But I don't usually recommend it on a routine basis. Focus on good eating. Don't eat too late at night. Avoid alcohol as a sedative or sleep aid. Again, look up, I don't know, Chef JJ, I can share my 8 keys for health, which has some sleep hygiene principles and good resources if you want to. I don't know if you post things like that. I
can put it in the, is it a PDF or?
Yeah, I can send it that way and send it to you if you want to post it somewhere as it relates to this, because it has a lot of the resources I've mentioned here too.
Sure, that sounds great. Okay, so Mona says, I've been whole food plant-based for a month now. How much fruit and starchy foods are bad for weight loss? And I wrote those are both great for weight loss.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you for asking that, though, because you're bringing up a common misconception. What the weight loss industry has perpetuated is these myths that you need to get a smaller plate and eat less, and starches and sugars are bad because they turn into fat. And all these are just that, are myths. If you're eating whole food, plant-based, and again, that's differentiating from white bread, sugar, pretzels, donuts, bagels, etc. If you're eating whole food, plant-based, and there we're talking sweet potatoes and squash and lentils and beans and corn and oats. And these are foods that you can eat all you want. As far as starchy foods, they come along with the fiber, the protein, the phytonutrients, and the antioxidants to help them metabolize, and they're an ideal source of energy that your body will burn for energy. So it's not the potato that makes you fat, it's the sour cream and butter and bacon and stuff people put on it. And a good principle to mention here is even a small amount, if you're trying to lose weight, can be challenging with fats. Remember, vegetables are an average of 100 calories per pound. So a whole pound of salad, picture a big salad bowl, 1 tablespoon of oil is 120 calories. So if you put just 1 level tablespoon, picture it, of ranch dressing or oil dressing on there, you just made that more than half fat. And people are like, no, it's 98% vegetable and 2% fat. Well, by volume, but because fats and oils are 4,000 calories, 40 times as calorie dense as the vegetables, you just messed up a good food. So whether it's cheese on broccoli or oil on your bread or on your potato or butter or margarine, even if it's plant-based oils, these are challenging if you're trying to lose weight. Better to get your oils, like everything else, from real food. Where do you think corn oil comes from? When you eat corn, you're getting oil. Soy oil comes from soy. Walnuts have a certain amount of healthy fats in there. And when you eat them with the walnut, you're getting appropriate amounts and with the phytonutrients to enjoy them. So I'm trying to remember if I answered the original question. Which fruits and starches should I limit? None of them. Eat lots of fruits of all kinds. Now, another caveat, though, not the fruit juice. If you put them through a juicer or squeeze them, you're leaving the fiber and a lot of the nutrition behind. Eat the whole fruit. And a caution with smoothies. Even though the whole fruit is in there, and you can have that, for some for a treat, and they can be good, try to use mostly vegetables like Dr. Goldner does in your smoothies. The fruit's more of a little bit of a sweetener or a condiment for your kale and spinach and carrot smoothie. Put some beets in there. The thing about it, though, is when you grind it up so fine, it is more quickly absorbed and has a higher glycemic index. So take your time to drink it and put some vegetables in there. And I hope that answers. Eat lots of starchy vegetables and fruits. They won't make you gain weight.
Absolutely. Okay. There was a question, somebody having heartburn. I have a different chat than everybody else, and it went very quickly away, but she said she was having some problems with heartburn.
That's very common. Probably majority of my patients at one time or another complain of that. And for some, it's just occasional, episodic. They ate too late or had a Mexican spicy meal or whatever. But for many, it's a chronic problem. And the main reason for that is when people put things that aren't really food into their stomach. And by that, remember our quadrant there. It turns out that meat, dairy, and eggs are food, but not for humans. They're good for cheetahs and cats and wolves. But when humans put them into their stomach, they're very high in fat and protein. And so your stomach has 2 ways, one in at the top where the esophagus joins, and the other on the outflow called the pyloric sphincter. This one is a very strong muscle. And when you put stuff into the stomach, it works on it and it puts acid in there and it churns it and it breaks it down to a stage where it's ready for this very sensitive small intestine to take over. And every now and then a little bit is released, and then on the other side it says, chemistry guys say not ready. So when you eat a steak and a cheeseburger meal, it takes a long time to digest that high fat and protein load that it's not used to. And it can work on it for up to 4 hours, churning and producing extra acid and trying to break down these unnatural components of food. And in the process, it's highly likely that that other valve that's not as strong will release some to the other side. Once the acid gets up on the other side of the valve on the top, the gastroesophageal sphincter, then it starts to cause irritation and makes it break down even more and causes even more. Another related to this is what's called hiatal hernia. People get constipated. They have to strain to push out, and there's 2 openings in the abdominal wall too. One here where the stomach goes in and one where your poop comes out. And when you increase the pressure in there, just like when you squeeze one of those little bulbs, both ears pop out, the stomach pops up into the abdomen. And a large number of people have what's called a hiatal hernia. Part of their stomach is up in their chest wall, and it no longer is lined up with the top of the diaphragm. And so it's much more likely for stuff to spill over into the esophagus. So again, the answer, like most of these chronic diseases, is eat real food. Another example, and by that I mean whole food, plant-based. A good example is if I went out on the lawn now and started grazing on grass and toadstools, I wouldn't feel very well. My stomach would say, send that back. It's not food for humans. We get socialized and used to the idea that cheeseburgers and French fries and vanilla malts are real food, but they're not. When you put them in your stomach, it doesn't do well, and it's sort of your first line of defense to say, send that back. So yes, reflux is very common. There may be a place in the short run for medications to help heal the valve, but try to do it by natural foods so that you're not on those. One of the most commonly prescribed medicines is omeprazole, over-the-counter form Prilosec, and it's been linked now with a kind of colitis called Clostridium, with osteoporosis, with a host of diseases long-term. So much better to do it with less potent ones if you can, and to prevent it or reverse it in the first place with good nutrition and lifestyle.
Right. Randy says you have a very nice, soothing voice. So maybe you should write a book and then you could narrate the audible version.
Hey, there you go.
Nice.
Yes, thank you. And again, I know I talk fast. I get excited about this because I like to be able to let people know that the power is in your hands. I come in, patients so often come in and they've been seeing another doctor and they're like wide-eyed, like, oh, you mean I can help this? And they've been used to just one after another of prescriptions for this or that symptom. And they're hungry for this sense that I can have some say in this and actually help improve my health. So health is a choice you give yourself.
Wow, you got to write a book just so you're saying.
I got it.
You come up with so many just during this show. Just want to read a nice comment from a live viewer named Susan. Dr. Breakey is a wonderful speaker. He says things in a way that makes you understand how important it is to change and take care of yourself. So people are really loving hearing you. So, there's a little, while you're talking, they're also talking amongst themselves. It's called the chat. So there's a little bit of they're talking about vitamin D because Dr. McDougall says not to take it. But then there's another question from a viewer named Vicky. Says, I live in the tropics and get lots of sun, 64 years old. So why is my vitamin D low? And the first person that sent in the question said she lives in Arizona and walks an hour a day and her vitamin D was still low despite adequate sunshine.
Yeah, thank you. I think I missed that part of the first question, but that's a great example of everybody's different. Now we're all humans, so we're all largely the same, but whether you look at vitamin D intake, absorption, metabolism, delivery, what's in the cells, what's in the bloodstream, all are different. And it may be that people with low serum vitamin D levels are able to, in their cells, activate it to the more active form. In the China study, Dr. T. Colin Campbell talks about how this more active form may be thousands of times more active than regular vitamin D. So maybe they have a low vitamin D level because that's all their body needs because they're able to convert it. So these recommended daily allowances and serum levels, and that's why I tell people, don't pay so much attention to the numbers. If you're eating healthy, if you're getting some modicum of sunshine, Now, it might also be that you've got some absorption problem, and B12 in particular, some people can't absorb it. It's a complex process, or in the stomach, it latches onto intrinsic factor and then it's absorbed in the lower part of the small intestine. And they can't, if they don't have that, or they can't, or they've had a stomach bypass, they may need to take injections. For a small number of people, it may also be true that they have trouble absorbing vitamin D, and so they need to take either higher doses or under the tongue. So yes, and I think that's a great example, is there are exceptions to each rule, but those don't make a new rule, if you see what I mean. When I was doing a lecture on helping prevent breast cancer, and one person wrote in and said, I do everything right, and why did I get it anyway? Well, seatbelts save lives, but they don't guarantee that if you're in an accident, you won't die. Eating healthy helps decrease your risk of all of this, but it doesn't guarantee you won't have something. The same thing here, your vitamin D levels are going to be variable depending on people. So work with your doc to make sure there's not some absorption problem. And you probably do want to, even if you live in the tropics, take a supplement to get yourself up to at least a level of 30.
Great, thanks. Vicki is watching. This is a great book. If you guys don't have it, please watch the presentation that Vicki did making the recipes. And she says, thank you for writing the foreword to her cookbook.
Thank you, Vicki. Great to see you.
Nice. So Bella says, I struggle to find salad dressings. Is it okay to use straight up balsamic vinegar, or is it bad for your teeth?
Oh, that's what I use. Remember that acids, remember back from chemistry, acids come in different potencies. Oh, bless you. Okay, keep going. Acids come in different potencies, and the acetic acid in vinegar is actually a relatively weak acid. Ascorbic acid is vitamin C. These are weak acids. So when people say, you talked about alkalinizing foods is important. Do I not have to eat oranges or lemons? No, that acid's okay. Now, on the other hand, if you suck on lemons, you're putting it right there, and that you don't want to do that for very long. So you can overdo that. But as far as just having the weak acetic acid in vinegar as part of your salad or your meal, don't worry about it. Much more important for your dental health is to eliminate the processed sugars. Even honey, any concentrated sugars and sweets just encourage the growth of these bacteria that get down in the crevices. And if you look at teeth from cavemen, they didn't have cavities. That's a new invention as we started processing sugar. Similar to many of the diseases we see today, dental caries are largely related to sugar. Don't worry about the vinegar.
Great, thanks. Mona says, what yearly or annual blood tests would you suggest people get?
Not a lot. Again, it depends on who you are and if you have disease conditions or other. But if you're in perfect health, you have no health conditions, and you're eating whole food plant-based, you should probably get a cholesterol and a blood sugar every 5 years to make sure they haven't changed. Now, the caveat there is obviously if they're high, you need to follow it up sooner. And about 1% of the population has what's called familial hyperlipidemia, or high cholesterol from genetic cause. Their own liver makes too much. And those folks need to be monitored, most likely treated with medication because they've got a genetic condition that causes cholesterol to be overproduced. So I guess I'm answering the question in two ways. If you're healthy, you have no chronic conditions, and you're eating healthy, cholesterol and a blood sugar every 5 years is good. If you have a tendency to high cholesterol, diseases that run in the family like diabetes or cholesterol, you may want to check a little more often. If you have those diseases yourself, you obviously have to follow your doctor's advice. And someone with diabetes that's not real well controlled, we check every quarter with a hemoglobin A1C, with cholesterol, with HSCRP to look at their inflammation levels. So it really is highly customized, but as far as routine for healthy people, not a lot.
Great, thanks. Karen wants to know, how do you retrain a lazy colon?
Oh, fiber, lots and lots of fiber. I think, as John McDougall says, I dare you to be constipated on my diet that gives 100 grams of fiber a day. But you do want to go gradual. If you just went from 15 grams to 100 overnight, your body's not used to processing that. And it may get gas, bloating, indigestion, diarrhea, or constipation as a result. So I guess the first step is to see where you're starting from. And a healthy colon is an outcome of a healthy microbiome. There's 38 trillion organisms, mostly bacteria, that live in your colon. Feed it with short chain fatty acids. They're codependent. I tell people, you're not just you're you and 38 trillion little organisms that you look out for each other. You feed them and you carry them around, you keep them warm, you protect them from predators. And in return, they give you short chain fatty acids, nutrients, detoxification. So to retrain your colon, you need to rehab your microbiome. Now, the good and the bad news is that some of that happens really quickly. They took two groups of people, one Americans, I think from Indianapolis, and one from rural Africa, and they swapped their diets and they looked at their microbiome. And within 2 weeks, when you fed the Americans the corn and the maize and the cassava root and the vegetables and the fruits and the high fiber diet, plant-based diet, their microbiome shifted towards more diversity, towards healthier types. And you fed the Africans the cheeseburgers and French fries and vanilla malts, and their healthy microbiome within 2 weeks started shifting, sort of less diversity towards more disease-promoting pattern. So some of that starts to change quickly. On the other hand, a lot of those are inhabitants of the mucosal layer of your colon that may have been there literally since you were born. And when you pass through the birth canal, part of your mother's vaginal flora helps to populate what is a sterile colon for a microbiome that helps to determine in part the way it'll be for the rest of your life. So that's why it's important to start even in pregnancy and to work with that on your colon rehab. But short answer to your question is gradually and directly work towards a high fiber, whole food, plant-based diet, and your colon will come into a healing mode, just like heart and others do as well.
I love this question. Diane says, I've been trying to go whole food plant-based for about 2 months. I'm about 90%. Is there anything wrong with a tiny bit of milk or butter once in a while? The food doesn't have any flavor sometime without it. As long as you keep using it, you're never going to get used to food without it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, exactly. I tell people you can do whatever you want. It's just how much risk do you want? What you need to realize is that the answer is the less, the better. And the way I would turn that around is to ask people to say, okay, suppose someone comes into me and they're smoking a pack a day, and they say, is it okay if I just smoke, 2 or 3 a day? And I say, yeah, it's way better than you're doing, but obviously it's not optimal. I'm not going to tell you that's good to do that. But hey, if that's what it takes for you to get from where you are to that, and that's all the best you feel you can do right now, great, good job. Let's celebrate incremental progress. Let's do it. That's awesome. So I never kind of try to dissuade people from getting, and if that's what it takes for you to help transition. But like Chef AJ says, there is a risk as you hold on to those things that you never really realize that you never needed them in the first place. They may be your crutches now, and if it's part of your transition plan, cool, go for it. And yet at some point, if your real answer is true health, then work on ultimately a goal of seeing where and how you can replace those. And even though it's not, totally whole food, you can make your own almond milk. It's super easy. Put your almonds and Chef AJ, you probably have a recipe better than mine.
It's so easy. Yeah, you can just take almond butter with water and you have almond milk. You can take
or grind up your almonds with a date and a little vanilla and pour them through cheesecloth. Voila, soak them first. But but you can use that in place of milk or cream or others, and you'll find pretty soon that you're liking it even better. So yeah, good question. I don't want perfect to be the enemy of good, and at the same time, do what works for you for your ultimate goals.
Right. But any amount of dairy is not good for the cow. I mean, if people saw really
Absolutely.
how dairy cows were treated and what happened to their young, and it's just the saddest thing in the world to me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So great. Thanks. Victoria says, any recommendations for Lyme/MS patients?
Lyme disease and MS, is she putting?
Well, she did Lyme/MS, so maybe she has both.
Okay. Let's kind of take them one at a time because they're completely different things. Of course, Lyme disease is an initial infection, usually from a tick bite that's infected with the Lyme, and not all ticks are, and not all tick bites, even if they are infected, they ought to be attached for at least 2 days. But once a person has Lyme disease, it's kind of similar to MS. It can set up an autoimmune response that leads to chronic inflammation of the joints and rashes and other concerns throughout many tissues of the body. So Lyme can be devastating. And of course, the first is prevention. If you're in a tick area, especially one where they're coming out, and we up north, and we have them in June in Michigan, do a tick check each day, because if they're attached for less than a day, you won't get it. If you do notice an actual tick bite and you think it's been attached for more than 2 days, your doctor can give you a short, quick course of doxycycline antibiotic, and it will prevent the Lyme. So do your best to prevent. Now, I know this person, they're saying, hey, okay, whatever, I got it. In that case, you do want to make as anti-inflammatory an environment as possible. And remember in our talk where animal foods are very pro-inflammatory, and we skip past it quickly, but so are processed foods. Salt, fat, oil, sugars, and processed foods are also pro-inflammatory. So you want an environment where your body can go into healing mode, not fighting inflammation, adding arachidonic acid. So first step is practice a whole food plant-based lifestyle. The second is exercise, and not just aerobic, but some stretching, some toning, get your joints lubricated and working well. The third is sleep. I mentioned a lot of your repair time happens in deep sleep. So good quality sleep is critical. And then probably overarching, I haven't mentioned enough, is social connectedness. People who have social connections have better balance, hormones, circadian rhythms, anti-inflammatory effects within their body. And so keeping those, do what you love and be with those you love, and spread friendship, and that will create an environment too where it's much more healing for the Lyme. Work with your doc too, but don't fall for a lot of these websites that will diagnose you with Lyme on just a blood test that commonly is inaccurate, and then offer you all kinds of supplements and cleanses and colonics and other things. There's a lot of charlatans out there in the Lyme treatment disease. They diagnose it in people that don't even have it and treat them with things that do more harm than good. Now on to MS. The research is very clear, and many of you probably know Sarai Stancic. She wrote the book, What's Missing from Medicine. She got MS back when she was a resident and infectious disease fellow. It's very inspiring. And again, look up her work. She did a documentary called Code Blue. She was so inspired by the fact that she was able to reverse her MS and then run a marathon when they told her she'd be wheelchair bound and never have kids and be probably dead by the time she was 50. None of that is true. That the work goes back over 50 years with Dr. Schwank out of the University of Oregon. And the leading concerns there are dairy products and saturated fat. Speaking of small amounts of dairy, the components in there that set up the autoimmune response seem to be a big part of that. And saturated fat in dairy, eggs, and meats are the main correlation. So getting to a whole food plant-based approach often sets the immune system back off from attacking the nerve cells. And depends what stage you're in. If it's too late and the nerves are already lost, there's not much that can be done. But especially in the early stages of MS, and in all stages, you can often improve it with a completely dairy-free, a very low saturated fat, whole food, plant-based, high fiber diet.
Nice, thanks. People are asking, what is the brand of the balsamic ginger vinegar that you like to put on your salad?
Oh, wow. We have in Plymouth here, we have a store called Old World Olive Oil. I guess, yeah, I skipped the oil side, but we just buy it off the shelf over there. I don't know if they sell online, but a lot of places have 18-year balsamic. Wow, I just love it.
Yeah, it's delicious. Can you make a cherry pie? Somebody wants to know.
Can you make a cherry pie?
I think that's a song.
Can I or may I? I'm not sure quite how to take the question.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe they said, can you make a cherry pie?
Oh, can I? Sure, I can make anything. I like to cook and to bake. And probably partly what they're saying is, can you make a healthy cherry pie? And I guess I'd turn it over to Chef AJ for that one.
Yeah, cherries are really expensive right now. I bought 2 bags and it was $40. I couldn't believe it, but I love them so much.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the Cherry Festival every year up in Traverse City in northern Michigan. It's one of the cherry capitals of the world. They spread across the state. But in Michigan, we use the hand to show kind of where we're from. It goes like this. And Traverse City is right up here in the pinky, so that the cherry capital of the world. But yeah, I imagine you can make a healthy version of cherry pie, just like a lot of things. And you can also just eat cherries. Hey, novel concept,
Yeah, cherry is one of the fruit that is not really improved by making it into a pie.
That's right.
But I do sometimes make a cherry cobbler with frozen cherries. But yeah, cherries are amazing.
Yeah.
So Joanne says, my hair is thinning and I have Hashimoto's disease. I'm on 150 micrograms of levothyroxine. Is the medicine causing this? What can I do?
Sorry, it went a little fast. She has.
Now you know what it's like listening to you.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
I'm teasing you. So her hair's thinning. She has Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
She's on 150 micrograms of levothyroxine and wanted to know, is the medicine causing this and what can she do?
Oh, is the medicine causing the hair thinning? No, the Hashimoto's, the hypothyroid can cause thinning of the hair, fatigue, cold intolerance. Those are common symptoms, dry skin and nails of the disease itself. So the levothyroxine is meant to replace what your thyroid is no longer making as a result of getting knocked down by some autoimmune event. It's hard to reverse thyroid disease. You might look up some of Dr. Brooke Goldner's work out of Texas. Her book is Goodbye Autoimmune Disease. Her initial book, Goodbye Lupus, might have some clues for you there. Hair thinning is often reversible once you get your thyroid levels back up to normal and are eating whole food, plant-based diet and daily exercise. So don't despair, your hair can come back, but it's not the medicine causing it.
Great. Advice for amenorrhea. There are a lot of causes. Amenorrhea means loss of period. It means you expected your period and it didn't come. Of course, the most common cause for that is pregnancy. But if you got a negative pregnancy test, or it can't have happened because you didn't do anything to make that happen in the prior month, then you've got some kind of hormone change. Remember, though, only 8% of women have every 28-day periods. It's normal to have variation in your periods now and then, and common to even skip them. But the best book on this is Dr. Neil Barnard's book, Your Body in Balance. And he really talks about how hormone disruption and dysregulation is behind most of this. And whether it's amenorrhea or hypermenorrhea, meaning heavier periods, dysmenorrhea, meaning pain with periods, polycystic ovary disease, precocious puberty, or menopausal challenges are all parts of the hormone disruption that come from eating foods that are not meant to be with us. And again, the most common is dairy. Milk is much more than just a food that gives nutrients and energy to baby cows. It's a signaling process to grow.
It also contains estrogen. It comes by definition from female cows, and that estrogen can get absorbed when you eat cheese or others. It disrupts your own imbalance. Your body also balances estrogen. This is for women, and in the right amounts by making a little more than it needs, usually by the ovaries and then some in the adrenals, and then sending some out through the liver. So it has a little surplus. It sends it out through the liver and attaches onto fiber and then goes on down. If you're eating a fiber deficient diet, it doesn't attach and it gets reabsorbed in the colon. So women who don't eat enough fiber have estrogen excess, and that's why the higher risk of period disruptions, of breast cancer, of polycystic ovary disease, of menopausal transition concerns. Anyway, I'm probably getting into more detail than this person wanted. If you have amenorrhea, of course, you should and it's more than just one skipped period, and you're not pregnant, you should see your doctor for an evaluation. Sometimes there are pituitary or ovarian concerns that need to be further evaluated and treated. But for the vast majority, just balancing your food, getting your hormones in balance with good nutrition and exercise, and supporting healthy microbiome are all you need to get back on track. One other thing that can cause it, of course, is well known, is a lot of exercise. Marathon runners often get skipped or absent periods, sometimes for long periods if they continue to exercise a lot. And my colleague Melissa will be best able to give you all the details on that one. So there are a lot of reasons for it. If it seems unusual, you've got to see your doctor.
Great, thanks. Lakeisha wants to know omega-6 and omega-3s. Are they good for everyone?
Omega-6 and omega-3 are both essential fatty acids, meaning our body can't make them. So yes, they're good for everyone. The question is in amounts. And the omega-3s are largely in things like flaxseed, walnuts, chia seeds, and hemp seeds. They also occur some in smaller amounts in vegetables and grains. And the omega-6s are largely in many of the other oils, especially corn oil and safflower oil, the other oils. So the average American eats very little of those first things I mentioned, and a lot of oil, and most of it's in French fries, to make their omega-6 to omega-3 ratio way off balance. It's better to have a more even ratio by eating very little oil and processed foods and a good amounts of the healthy omega-3 acids. By the way, skip the fish oil. Some well-intended doctors or others are still saying that here's a healthy source of long-chain omega-3s. Maybe if you like it having along with mercury, you should do that. But sorry, you skip the middle fish because the fish don't make the omega-3s, they get it from the algae. And if someone wants to get a supplement, then just use the DHA, EPA, pollutant-free algae-based supplements. So again, omega-6 and omega-3 are both healthy. Make sure you're getting in a good ratio by eating healthy whole foods. You get all the omega-6s you get from eating whole plant foods, corn. You don't need to eat any extra oil. If you're going to have a small amount of oil, the least worst is olive oil. And don't cook it though. When you cook oils, they get denatured and challenging. But once again, I'm not encouraging olive oil. It's something you should think of as the least worst if you got to have it for something.
The least worst is like Dr. Goldhammer always says, just because something is less bad doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
Yeah. I just don't understand. I mean, I don't understand the love affair with oil. I mean, it's not a natural food. It's not found in nature. It wasn't eaten by our ancestors. I mean, it doesn't really taste good. I don't understand why people are so enthralled by it.
Well, it does have its basis in that, though, and our tongues have receptors for sweet, of course, and that's obvious. If you found blueberries or fruits, that would be rewarded with dopamine. Salt, they didn't have processed foods, and unless you live by the ocean, it's hard to get enough sodium to run. All of our cells need sodium to run. So foods that were naturally higher in salt were selected for by our taste buds. And the reason oil, and indeed many meats, is that calorie density was also selected for with a dopamine reward. So if you found nuts or avocados or foods that were more calorie dense, since they lived in times of starvation. So just like with sugar, we've extracted out the sweet part of it. We've extracted out the most calorie dense part. And oils do also trigger dopamine. It's like you say, it's a different reason, but think of it very similar to sugar. If I'm eating, a sweet potato and it tastes good because it's got the sugar that it should have, and I get rewarded for that, and then I eat a Milky Way bar, which is even more sugar. Same kind of thing. You eat something that has a little bit of oil in it, like a walnut, that's good. I extract out the calorie density and say, hey, brain, here's something you're really going to want because this is going to really give you some storage for times of starvation. So similar concept to sugar. But yeah, great question. It didn't exist in nature that way. So why do we like it?
But even the high fat whole food plants were seasonal. I mean, it wasn't like they had Costco with the shelled nuts or anything like
That's
that.
right. That's right.
Avocados every day. So yeah, I understand. Okay, well, this has been great. I mean, this was a wonderful presentation. People really loved it. They loved you. If you ever want to come back with or without your wife, with or without a cooking demo, we would love to talk to you again.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you so much for having me on. And I guess if I could just leave people with a final thought to take that knowledge, that power you have now, and grow with it. Watch Forks Over Knives or Game Changers to inspire yourself to say, if others can do this, I can do it too. And then you'll feel the benefits. You'll experience the joy that health and vitality bring you. And that was what will help you to stick with it, because it isn't easy. We've all been through those phases, and there's always temptations out there. But as Chef JJ says, if it's in your home, it'll be in your mouth.
If it's in your house, it's in your mouth.
Yeah, right. Sorry. And you want to make your home a safe place, and you want to practice each day what's important for you, and that longevity, the health and vitality are priceless. So keep those 1,000 dreams, and health to all. Thank you so much, Chef AJ.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Breakey. It was such a pleasure getting to know you. Are you active on any social media or blogs? If people want more of you, where can they get it? Because they can't get into your practice, that's for sure.
The more expanded version of my talk, I think, is posted in 2 places on YouTube. I did a talk for Troy Public Library, and they posted it, and then Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. So it's an expanded version of what I showed your group tonight. If people want to just Google my name on YouTube, I know those will pop up. But no, like I say, I'm kind of unique. I'm not selling anything. I just love spreading health. So thank you for the opportunity. If I'll send you my 8 keys, and if people want to contact me through there, feel free.
Great. Well, you spread it very well. Thank you so much, Dr.
All right.
Breakey.
Thank you again. Enjoy all. Happy summertime.
Thanks. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, when my guest is George Hayek. He owns a hospital in Lebanon where they only serve vegan food. Tell them to do that in Michigan, Dr. Breakey.
Yes. We're working on it.
Take care. Bye-bye.